And Tim's laugh is the official start of March to the Steps. All right, everybody, we want to first thank you all for coming out tonight and supporting our 6th annual March Through the Steps. Thanks. And just real quick, before we get started, let's start this with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will and ours be done. All right. So some of us were talking earlier, and it came up a couple times. 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, we went to, I believe it was November to Remember at the Northeast Club in Philly, and there was a few of us that went and saw, I believe, Peter and a couple other folks. And a lot of us on the committee, I know Brad, myself, a friend of ours who's not here, Jason, Ashley, were all in some way deeply inspired by people who would give some talks at workshops or conventions or conferences like this. And not because they necessarily sounded good, although some of them do, but because of the work that they were doing to get to a place that was a little bit more than, or a lot more than just being sober. And I know my personal experience was that I heard a man back in 2016 while I was in Fort Lauderdale for a week. And I was not ready. I was like sober for 7 days, didn't really know if I wanted to be sober. And I heard this guy talk about the 12 steps in a way that I had never heard anybody talk about them before. And I leaned over to the guy next to me who was the manager of the house, and he had no idea that I was already going to be on a plane the next day to go back home. And I said, that's the kind of guy you get to sponsor you. And he said, well, if you walk up to him, he'll sponsor you. And I said, no, that's the kind of guy, if you're ready, I'm not willing to do anything that guy just talked about. And that guy was Peter. And about a year later, I was just out of treatment, and I had gotten a sponsor, and I was going through the steps, and I was slacking on writing inventory, and I couldn't sleep, so I threw a talk on, and I didn't put two and two together until I had heard him talk for about 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's the guy from a year ago. And I got up and I wrote my inventory in a span of like 6 hours that night. And again, like a lot of you have had the experience of that. Like my life's been incredibly different ever since. So we wanted to put something together like this, but also to do it for the community of Delaware, because there wasn't really anything like this in Delaware. And so we put our heads together in December of 2018, and we planned something in 3 months, and we invited Peter and Marion and Scott and Kathy P., and they all came, and a lot of people came out to support it, and a lot of people said a lot of really good things, so we have just kept on trying to put this together. So we hope that whatever happens for you this weekend encourages you or inspires you to do something a little bit more. So with that, I've asked a friend, Chris, to come up and read the preamble.
I'm Chris, alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contribution. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thanks for letting me read.
And I've asked Julia to read the 12 steps.
Thank you, Patty. I didn't know I could come up here.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Julia. I'm an alcoholic. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thanks for letting me read.
All right, and everybody, if you can help me welcome our first speaker, Pat M. from Exton, Pennsylvania.
I'm Pat, I'm alcoholic. My home group in Exton, Pennsylvania. I am not from Exton, Pennsylvania. I got sober December 2nd, 2011, I think. 14 years, whatever that add up to. It's been a long day. Grateful to be here. My home group, it switches. A lot of times it's acceptance group over there off 113, or Euclid, I think it's called. It's spelled Uwachalon. Where I come from, you say it like it's spelled kinda, you know. And then it goes to the 11-step group too if my little boy ain't got football on Fridays. But anyways, sober 14 years. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised. And yeah, I come up from a neighborhood I used to, when I first got sober, that was like my badge of honor. And I think for a long time it's what kept me real sick, right? Because I come from a rougher place. My background is, what do they call it? Humble beginnings. Meaning we're poor folk. You know what I mean? It was rough. But I was so sick like that when I came in here. I would always categorize like my childhood as just rough and terrible. And there was some rough spots. There was some terrible spots. But I think even the best households have them same things. But I would say things like I'm a product of my environment. And thank God for these steps. When honesty finally sets in and prevails enough. When I see that I can be a product of my environment. Because I could tell you about how rough it was. I can tell you about gang activity and drug activity and all the red zones, the whole nine, right? Police knew me by name. That's what I thought was my environment. The truth was when I finally got into these steps and I started being honest, I come watching a woman put herself back through school just to raise her boys, put clothes on their back, a shelter over their head. This woman come in my room at night and she'd say, baby, you don't have to pray if you don't want to. But I want you to know God's your friend. You can talk to him just like that. I watched a woman, it'd be a Bible or a Buddhist book or whatever it is, Sikhism, all kind of crazy shit opened up on her dresser. And I was running around rooms like this as a young man because my mom's been sober 30, 35 plus years, something like that. Shit, I don't even know my date. A long time she's been sober, okay? But anyways, that's the true environment I grew up in, right? But those are the things I neglect as a result of shame and like all the other stuff that makes us who we are leading up to this. But anyways, I jumped off the porch early. I started drinking and messing around and getting into crime when I was about 11 years old. And it sounded tough, but it wasn't. I was real bad at it. I mean, first robbery, I couldn't even raise the gun. I was, please, sir, give me your money. I ain't even hit puberty yet. It probably sounded, it's probably, you serious? First drink. I remember, and this is a big part of my story, because this is one thing I found out through the steps, is like these different defects or these different truths about myself that I'd been spending so much time protecting myself or trying to protect myself and that truth from you. So you wouldn't see it like these little insecurities and stuff. And so I remember the first time I used drugs or I drank, I remember I didn't even know how to feel. I was looking at everybody else trying to act like or mimic or discover how this is supposed to affect me, right? We smoking a little grass, you know, and I'm like, I don't know if I feel anything. And then I see all of them giggling, and I'm like, I guess this is funny, right? I'm, and even still to this day, I'm so fragile to what other people think, you know? And I think that's a big factor. But anyways, I rolled off the porch at 11, and I come from good raising. I'll jump all over the place. But when I got to AA, I met an old man that told me what was actually wrong with me. And it wasn't that I drank too much. He said that you suffer from alcoholism. You got a mental, physical, and spiritual problem, malady, right? And I was like, what the hell? This old man crazier than hell. And he explained it to me in the best way possible. He said, the mental factor of the disease, he said two things that separates you. And he said, one is, he said, for me, if I walk into a normal room full of normal people, he said, I'm constantly comparing myself. I'm looking around, I'm seeing where I fit constantly, right? Because I'm never where I'm supposed to be. He said the other mental factor, he said that if you do drink and you do use, he said, I bet you're unable to focus or be present to what you're doing because all you can think about is that. And I was like, all right. I spent many days on dangerous jobs, you know, just not looking, I'm just saw cutting, thinking about the dope man, you know. And then he said physical. He said physical is a couple different ways, right? He said we got an allergy, meaning an abnormal reaction. He said, so physically, if you put this in your body and you constantly need more, he said, that's a factor. He said also, though, and he said, and this is something to contend with, he said physically, he said a drink is what people do on the movies and in real life to relax. He said, if you put that in your body and you're revved up, ready to headbutt somebody, physically, that's different. I was like, man, that's me, man. I'm either naked or fighting every time, you know? Sometimes both, sometimes both. And so physical is his thing, but here's where he got me. Here's what landed me in AA, and here's why I stayed. He said, spiritually, though, the malady, he said, let me ask you something, son. He said, I bet you had somebody that taught you right from wrong. It might not have been your daddy. Sure wasn't my daddy. He said, but I bet there was somebody. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, in that, he said, I bet they taught you some kind of form or list of values. And I said, absolutely. My mama taught me values. And he said, I bet you violated every single one of them. And I was like, yes, sir. You know, that hit me strong. And I said, yes, sir. He said, and I bet the more you violated those principles, the worse your drinking and using got. He hit me, and I was like, sir, I think so. Yes, please, sir, help me. And I was ready then. And he was so cool because he loved listening to speaker tapes, but he talked about Sandy Beach, the spiritual life is not a theory. And he said, you're going to have to change, son. And he said, but here's the blessing. He said, I'll walk with you through it, every bit of it, shoulder to shoulder. And that's what got me started. Before then, just to give a little bit, I jumped off the porch at 11 when I was 18 years old, and I love drink. Alcohol's little cousins, the hyper ones and the real sad ones, are a part of my story, big time. But alcohol was the most consistent. I mean, that was my best friend. Paul Masson, room temperature, was my best friend since I was about 12, 13. And what happened, I jumped out into the streets. When I was 18 years old, this was like the first consequential thing, and something in me just was running like I was running, and I thought I was going to be all right. It's a foolish ass thing, but I was like, I'll be fine, right? And when I was 18 years old, about 11 police officers, I say 11, I'm alcoholic, so it's probably like 8. All right, if around any quantities I say up here, just cut out go 70% of what I say. But anyways, they damn near kick in my mama's door, and they come get me out of bed, and they take me to jail. And I remember going downstairs, and I see my mama and my little brother, the two closest people in the world to me, and they got tears streaming down their faces as I walk out. And let me tell you the man I was. I see that. I've harmed these two people that are the most important people in the world to me. And I got down to booking, and I called that sweet woman, my mama, and I said, who the fuck's gonna come get me out? Look here, if I could drink normal, I wouldn't, out of fear of becoming that man again. Absolutely unable to see the pain and suffering and how selfish I was. Them two people were scared to death. Kicked down her door, come pull me out of bed. And how tough I was too. This was another one of them realizing things, is I'm tough, I'm a gangster, I'm fully affiliated, gang activity, the whole nine at the time. Tough. Sleeping on a damn twin bed with some Mickey Mouse sheets, eating up all my mama's food. How? When you look at, when somebody helps you, like a sponsor, look at your life for real, you're like, man, shit, man, maybe I ain't that gangster, man, It's so crazy to me. And thank God for it. It hurt that at the time, but it was thank God for it. But anyways, my daddy, he come get me out, and he said, this will be the only time, anytime. I said, yes, sir. And it didn't scare me. I kept on. 6 months later, I was on my way to do my first bid in prison. And I did 2.5 years in prison. I'm going to tell you something right now. It's the greatest gift ever. Now, it talks about it in, it's kind of like straddling a fence, right? It's because I got my GED in prison, and God bless my mama, right? I'm in prison. I am an animal. If you ask the state what I am, right? I get my little GED. She came to the little ceremony. That's my baby. It was a happy moment for us. We're taking pictures together. But I do all this stuff. I'm waking up in the morning when I'm supposed to. I'm working out. I'm eating 3 meals a day. And I don't see any of this. This is hindsight. And if anybody's struggling with something right now, just keep stepping, right? Because hindsight's where we see them blessings. Right? And I'm going through this, and I get to the end of this damn near 3 years, and I feel better about myself than I have in a really long time. But I haven't accepted any tools, and I hadn't really done anything different. They made me do these things, right? I had a rough run. I won't get too much into prison. I will. I'm going to say this story, because this blessed me, right? When newcomers, when they come in, and this is how I was, and like I said, I got the gift of prison. If anybody's new in here, this really helped me. Is there's 2 kinds of men that do time, or women. Usually, the same way they do time, these 2 is the same person. It just, the approach is different. And there's one that gets there, don't want to be there. They hate every second of it. They fight it. They're like, I don't even want to fucking be here. They're talking to anybody that'll listen. They're like, can you look at my case? Do I have a chance? Right? And they're just dying. They're calling mama on the phone. They're running up her bill $60 a day. And they're fighting it hard. They don't want to be there. They're crying in the shower. You got another person allotted the same amount of time. They come back. They do their push-ups, they read their books, they go to their class, right? Now, the crazy thing is both of them people don't want to be there the exact same. One has accepted what it is, that sentence. The other is continuing to fight and suffering greatly as a result. When I finally knew, and I didn't come to AA because I wanted to quit drinking, I came to AA because I knew I never would. I knew I had finally met my match with myself, and I would never adapt to a wholesome lifestyle or have enough willpower myself to stop being who I was. And I said, I'll do whatever you tell me. It's not pretty. I saw the dudes. I've been around the dudes that come in. They're like, God, it's great, brother. 10 days sober. I used to look at them and be like, man, I'm doing something wrong. I ain't praying right. I pray extra hard when nobody was looking. Trying to. And them boys get drunk. The one thing that keeps us sober the most is saying, I'm fucking struggling. I got this idea about 5 years sober that I wasn't allowed to. I was the president of AA. Right? I'd get up, I'd start speaking, right? People would be like, man, he's cool, man. What religion are you? I'd be like, I don't know. But I thought I wasn't allowed to struggle. And man, that was so lonely. Being in a room full of all y'all not allowed to be a human or suffer, I still get like that. People like, how you doing? I'm like, everything good. It's not okay. Sometimes. I don't even remember what I was talking about. Prison. All right. Anyways, I had another fortunate opportunity. I got put in a hole for about 8 months. There were some behavioral issues early on in my life. But anyway, this is what I do in AA. This is what I do in my life today. No matter how good you give it to me, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight against something good. The biggest factor of my alcoholism, still to this day, the same way it was then, is if you show me love or you bring something that might be good to me, some fiber of my being, something in me pushes it away. I fight it. You tell me what's good for me. You tell me what's right, and I fight it. That's why that line in the book where it says we have ceased fighting everything and anyone is such a difficult fucking one to hear, but it's everything to me, right? But they put me in the hole. I'm 18 years old, and all I know how to do is be crazy, and I'm scared. So that's what I done. I was crazy. I kicked on that door. The guard, in the hole, they got little slots, right? That's how they give you trays and all that. And I'd wait behind the door, and I'd hit him in his knees with him. I'd open the door. I was just a nut. And those men gave me a gift. They quit feeding me. They quit opening the slot. They didn't say a word to me. They didn't talk back to me. They didn't yell at me. They didn't cuss me. They just walked by. And I'd be like, what? My tray, sir. And there was a guy next to me I knew from the street. And he one night he was like, Pat. And I said, yeah. And he was rustling something in the hole. They carve out the side of the wall so you can hand stuff in between. And so I heard the rustling. I was like, I'm going to get a cigarette. Perfect. And I go over, it's a book. It's John Grisham, A Time to Kill. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. He said, do me a favor, Pat. And I said, yeah. He said, sit your ass down, man. I'm trying to sleep. He's being loud. I read that book in 2 days. I quit fighting enough. 2 days after that, they opened the slot. My tray came in. And how much God loves me is that same possibility of change, of him opening the door to you surrendered, my son. Here's your rest. I would take that and I would go, got him. And I'd go right back into the same thing, So I ended up, long story short, I ended up doing another stint in prison. And got out, and the second time I got out, I was more afraid, and I tried. I was dry about a week, maybe 2 weeks, and I just got this real anxiety, this discomfort, and I was like, man, maybe if I just go out one time. So I ended up back doing the same old thing, and at the time, my brother jumps off the porch when he's 10. Right, following in Big Brother's footsteps. And man, I love my brother so much, man. I get into our history, especially when I talk about the fourth step, and I'll get all teared up here. But anyways, there's a foundation in Nashville trying to help him since he was about 12. Put him through treatment, Hope Foundation. God bless him. Thank God for him. And at the time, he's still ripping and running. And I'm at the end of my road. Things are not tough anymore. I'm stealing TVs off the wall, getting caught, fake crying, trying to get out of it. And this lady from the Hope Foundation calls, and she says, hey, can we meet up? And I said, why? And she said, I want to see if you can help your brother. And I said, yes, ma'am. And at the time, I probably ain't showered in 3 days. I'm living at the trap house. And I go meet her, and she says, she's like, you need help. And I was like, oh, I thought we were here to talk about my brother. And she's like, no, you need to go to treatment, bad. And I was like, nah, I tried all that. I did the programs in prison. And she's like, no, you need to go. And she's trying everything she can, right? She's like, how much money you got in your pocket? I'm like, $2, but I'll have, 100 by minimum. Yeah, I'm cool. And she says, I said, I appreciate everything, but I'm not going to entertain this. And she said, I asked your little brother what he thought about you getting sober the other day. Do you want to know what he said? I said, no, ma'am, I've had enough of your time. And I turned to walk away, and she said, your little brother laughed in my face. And he said, my big brother gonna die before he's anything different. And I still couldn't accept the truths about myself, but that was the first time it really hit hard. And I was like, he said that? You know, I get a little teared up. And she said, yeah. And I said, I'll do whatever you ask. Send me where you got to send me. They sent me to this place. It's they call it a spiritual retreat for men. And it's basically people in the AA community. They come in every day, they volunteer, and they take you through the book. They sit with you. You do 3-4 hours in the morning. You eat lunch, and then you do a group in the afternoon, and you sleep and do the same thing the next day. And I get to this place, and there's the happiest little just God fairies running down the drive. Just, brother, we're so glad you're here. Y'all ever see that movie Tommy Boy where Chris Farley's got the little black trash bag? That's his luggage. That's me getting out the thing, you know, like, hey, man, no, They're like, brother. I'm like, no, we don't hug. Please don't touch me, man. I'm not a toucher, right? And they're just like, all right, man, we're just so glad you're here. And I'm like, what have I done? Send me back to prison. I'm scared to death. I'm more scared than I've ever been around you AA people, right? And I made my way in there, and I'm beaten. I don't want to be around all this happiness. The main thing is, and what I know to be true now, is I just wasn't worthy of it. Reason I push love away so hard is because I ain't worthy of it. There's something in our book. It might be in our book, but it's something my sponsor cued me in on real early. He said, son, there's something called reverse pride. He said, pride is when we think we know better. Our opinion, everything, we actually know more, or it's greater than anybody else's. And he said, when you're doing this sad ass shit saying you ain't worthy, he said, that's pride. You're saying you know better than everybody else talking, or you're different. And so I get to this place, and I make my way in, and man, God bless him, man. I was super unapproachable on purpose. The first week there, man, and I didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't think I belonged. And I always thought anybody that mentioned God, there was always an antagonized feature inside my soul. But it wasn't God. Mama taught me God in a very loving way. It was, I thought you were better than I was. I didn't think I was worthy of it. So I had to fight against it. And I get to this place, and the first week I'm there, man, and you guys the happiest. It pissed me off. I mean, them little dudes would just be like, brother, it's good, man. Like, just be at the second step group. I just wanted to fight. This guy comes in, and he speaks, and at the time, too, it's always this comparison. I'm like, ain't nobody like me here, right? These dudes come from better homes and all of this. I'm comparing myself, and this guy comes in. He tells my exact same story. He'd been to prison. He'd been involved in gangs. He'd been drinking and doing all this stuff. But he tells this story at the end. It absolutely floored me. And he said this, and I always tell this. He says, in a third world country, there's this little girl, her parents, for whatever reason, she's 6 years old, and they just leave her at the bus station. They abandon her. And so she ends up in foster care. And I ain't never been in foster care. My brother had to for a time, and it's a real rough place. And so she does what every human being has to do, is adapt. So she fights, she claws, she does what she has to do to survive. But in that situation, she has to harden herself. Now, the whole time, all she wants is a family. All she wants is to be loved. That's all any fucking human being wants. That is our basic. That's our basis. She's old enough to where she's not getting adopted because she's 6. So she ends up in foster care for 4 or 5 years. This little girl, 10, 11 years old. And the whole time, her wish is to be adopted, to be loved, to have a family. But she's raging. She's fighting. She'll fight anybody to get close enough. She'll snap at them until the day comes where there's an American couple that's going to adopt this beautiful little girl. So they fly over. The American man, he goes in, he kneels down, and he says, I'd like to bring you home with us. I'd like to be your father. And all she could do was spit in his face. And I heard that story, and I just went, fuck, man. I'm dying for years. I'm in prison making fun of the people in the prayer circle, but dying in my heart wishing I could be a part of it. All I want's a hug, and all these folks been doing is offering me a hug, but I push them away. My mama, I say God ain't been there. I say love ain't been there, because I get my heart broken. And I go in the house, and that sweet woman puts her hand on my back and says, baby, do you want to pray? And I slap it away because it's not the one that I want. Whew. I hear that story, and I couldn't do that now. I couldn't cry like this then. So I was like, I need to take a bathroom break. And I went, man, I wept. Around that same time, my brother goes back to the streets. He was in treatment when I got there. He leaves, and so I do what I've always done. I said, I gotta go out there with him. I gotta save him, and thank God for I think my sponsor told me, he said the best thing you can do for any man is tell him the truth, regardless of whether he likes it or not. Your whole job is to tell the truth and point him towards God. That's it. And so I tell this one lady, I said, I'm gonna leave here. I gotta go back. She said, okay. We'll be here when you get back. I just want you to know I love you. I'm like, well, that ain't the damn answer. I was like, well, you ain't gonna fight for me to stay? What am I not working? And I go to this other guy and I tell him, I say, man, I got to go. And he said, Pat, he said, man, I'm gonna be honest, man. You go out there and chase him, you're gonna kill him quicker. He said, you always have. The shame hit me so hard I almost swung on him, but he was so right. He said, son, the best thing you can do is pray for that man. Hit your knees and ask God to help him, because you ain't never been able to. And I was like, shit, man. I said, what do I say? He said, ask God to let him go through all that he has to be brought to a different way. And that's the first time I really got to cry. And God knows how long, man. I think ever since Daddy, I won't get into that, but I ain't cried probably since I was about 9 maybe. And I'd pray that every morning. I'd bawl my eyes out, scared to death that he's going to die. He didn't. It's somebody in this room that helped him. My brother, man, my brother comes to AA, he comes back finally, and man, you want to talk about grace and love, man. He was on the news, he caught a case, he ends up in jail. He's not sober at the time. 50 people from Alcoholics Anonymous showed up at his court date, wrote him letters, was there for him. Boy. He gets out, he comes back around, and he's salty as some bitch you ever meet. I mean, in meetings, our home group was like this big, this podium like this. It's probably just as many people, if not double. And he was just angry as shit. I mean, I lived with him. He'd come out, and he'd just be like, we'd be watching a movie, he'd just be like, look at this love. Love don't exist, man. This shit ain't real, you know? And my heart, I just laugh and be like, right, yes, you're awesome. And one morning he come out and he's had his back to me. He had the little coffee pot, getting his little coffee ready. And I was like, what's up? I was like, happy birthday, bro. I love you. You know, I got you a little something. And he's like, yeah, that's fucked up though, man. All these people in AA talking about love. Ain't nobody told me happy birthday. And I said, bro, did you tell anybody it was your birthday? He froze. You see him tense up. He's like, no, I didn't. But anyways, he gets a year doing this. I mean, just white knuckling it. You know, half of it was court, whatever. And he gets up this big home group and he picks up his year chip, cusses out the whole room essentially. But in it, he still won't admit he said it, but he said, I don't know how I'm sober. He said, I might need help. But all this is fucking stupid. He just goes in this whole thing. And as he's leaving, there's this guy, Jason Buchanan, and thank God for him. He grabbed him and he said, call me tomorrow. I'm going to sponsor you. You're going through the steps. You can be tough all you want. Call me. And he said, matter of fact, write down your number because I'm going to call you if you don't. My brother's sober today, 13 years. He's got a little girl. He's got a successful career. He helps other people. He's a good man. And that's thanks to y'all. I love these rooms. Anyways, and how am I doing on time? All right. So, again, I'll bounce around. So I get to this treatment center. Another thing that happened, and I always love talking about this, is I start to have this realization that I want this. And I don't know what this looks like, right? I don't want to be like the one guy, right? That's like, hey, brother, God is good. I don't want to be that guy. I am now, but I don't want to be that guy at the time. So I'm fighting this, but I want something. There's something different here, man. It's so crazy. I mean, I'd say the most insane stuff, and they'd just be like, love you, man. Keep coming back. It's like, this is the greatest place ever. So I'm feeling that in my heart, but again, like that little old girl that got adopted, I've been in this situation where I got to be a certain way for so long. And so I'm having this change inside, but I'm still too cool to show it outside. So that we get to this little third step group, and all them boys are talking about, they're like, dude, it's going to be incredible. There's a rainbow that comes in through the sunshine, and you might ride away on a unicorn. Gandhi's going to be there to do the book with you. They talking about they pray together and all this, right? And so in my heart, I'm like, I've been waiting on my unicorn forever, man. I love this. And I do what we all do. I formulate this expectation, right? Comparison always leads to expectation, right? Because when I get in and I see these guys that are godly at 10 days and have no struggles in the world, right? I say, man, I'm doing something wrong, right? And I leave this expectation of I need to be doing whatever they're doing. But I do the same thing with the work. I see the spiritual experience these people are having, and I go, man, that's going to be mine. We do this group. Worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. You got Ben Stein running it. If you just turn to page 63, there ain't no enthusiasm. I'm Southern. He ain't told one story. I don't read good. I live stories is what I do, right? And he does all this deal, and then he goes, the prayer's on page 63. If you guys want to do that, you can by yourselves. This some bitch done took away my unicorn. I'm ready to fight. He done did so. When I was in prison, there was this man, Kenneth. He was the imam, which is like a Muslim preacher, right? And he's my buddy, man. We'd always talk. We'd always chop it up. And I'd argue with him mostly about things I didn't know anything about. And he loved that. He tended to love that. But one day I was arguing with him, and he said, Pat, you really want to know something? I said, yeah, that's what I'm talking to you, Kenneth. He slammed the Quran shut. He threw it in my chest, and he said, if you're ever going to learn anything, you need to look yourself. And I'm asshole at the time. I was like, I knew you didn't know, kid. Just giving him a hard time. But anyways, you fast forward, I got this expectation. It's totally plummeted. My spiritual experience, Gandhi did not pray with me that day. And I'm man down. But I'm sitting there with that book, and on page 63, after the prayer, it says it's okay, or it's good to take this step with a spiritual advisor, friend, person like that, but it is better to meet God alone and then with one who might misunderstand. I said, all right, cool. So I go up on this hill, and I look country and I sound country, but I'm from the city. I'm 26 at the time. It's the first time I saw cows. They're cool. I sit on this hill amongst the cows, and I said the first honest prayer I've ever said in my life. I said, God, I hate myself. I'm dying inside. Every single person that loves me, I've hurt. I've ruined every single relationship. And man, look, I'm looking at these people that are happy and loving. I don't think I can have it. I don't think I deserve it. I don't know if you're real or not, but man, if you are, I need your help bad. Please help me, God. And I get up on my feet. I still get to God. Once I start walking down this hill, and the unicorn didn't happen. I wasn't swifted away on the rainbow. And Gandhi wasn't at the bottom, with some olive oil and some bread. But for the first time in my life, I remember walking down that hill, and my brain wasn't running 10,000 miles an hour. And that shame that I carry on my chest like a big-ass anvil you know, or 200 pound, like them old concrete block. Anybody do construction? The real ones back in the day. That same feeling on my chest, it wasn't there for the first time in my life I could ever remember. I was okay. Just for that moment. And just like Bill's story says, though, what did he say? He said, this moment was beautiful, soon to be blotted out by worldly clamors. Because I went right back crazy 10 minutes later. But that little bit of freedom said, man, I'm trying. I get to the fourth step. I did my fourth step in treatment as they suggested. The program was so cool because their mainstay was, this is not what keeps you sober. Treatment will not keep you sober. You doing these same steps and being amongst these same people when you get out of here is how you will stay sober. So I do that when I get out. I got me a sponsor. I start working the steps. We get to this fourth step. Sponsor did me the greatest service ever is he got to know me. He listened to me. He took time with me. Greatest gift ever for anybody we can give. I get to my fourth step, and when I was probably 6 or 7, this man he found out my mama was pregnant, and he stole all her shit and he left in the middle of the night. That's my brother's daddy. Since I was about 9, I was gonna kill him. I get to this, I don't put him on the list. And my sponsor, he knew my brother. And he said, hey, are you going to put Kurt on the list? You know, you're going to put your brother's daddy? And I said, no. I said, you told me this is something like I re-feel. I said, I don't feel nothing for him. I said, when it's time, I said, I'll kill him. And and look, real serious too. He laughed like y'all laughed, right? And I wasn't laughing. I was just like, all right. And he goes, and he does what sponsor does. He says, Pat, you gonna risk your life for 51 years for revenge? And I said, no, boss. I said, when it's time, I said, I ain't gonna get caught. I promise you. He knew I wasn't playing, right? And he quieted up. But the man asked me a question that changed the whole direction of my life. He said, and I was so full of rage, man. I always have been, man, just out of a protecting mechanism. And he said, all right, Pat. He said, I'll never tell you what to do. He said, because that ain't my job. He said, if you got to kill that man, he said, I love you still. He said, but I want to ask you a question. And it ain't for you to answer to me, it's for you to answer yourself. He said, was that man an alcoholic? I said, yes, sir. He said, I wonder what your life, your mother's life, and your brother's life would have been like if he would have stayed. He said, son, maybe that was God doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself the whole time. And that, like the book says, that thought floored me. Right? And I was like, oh my God. And I never thought about that. And he said, man, I want you to pray about it and think about it, but I want you to put him on the list. I said, I think about it, man. So I did what any, tax-paying citizen would do, strong, domesticated man. I called my mama and asked her permission if I could put him on the list. I called my brother too, and they said, yeah, and what I learned about that inventory is people don't do things to us, they do things for themselves. And what I've done constantly, and I still do today, is as a result of protecting myself or what I think you may think of me based on your behavior, I'll act crazier. I'll do the same thing, if not worse. And the realization that came from just working that inventory was a beautiful thing. And I still take that practice today. I do a little more in-depth, called a thought life inventory. My sponsor on a whole different thing, just a mind fuck, crazy. But anyways, that inventory set me straight. Another thing it did was I had my daddy coming up. Don't let me hold you. I won't say nothing poor about my father, man. My father tried his best. My daddy come from a rougher place than I could ever imagine. So he did his best, but I had a sister who was a good kid. She always did the right thing. Hell, she got scholarships to go to private school and like high school. You know what I mean? She was just a good ass kid. She'd tell her friends at school she was from Britain. You know, it was probably a good idea. You know what I mean? But anyways, he'd always give her everything. Hell, my birthday, she'd get a present. And I always had this thing, man, and he was on my list because when I was in prison, he quit talking to me for about 2 years. And So I put him on the list, and my sponsor said, you know, most important thing right before that fourth and fifth column, he said, pray for him until you're tolerant. It took a little while for me, but as I'm praying, one day the thought comes up. It's like, I know he did more for her, but she was a good kid. It's hard to be a good kid, right? She does good shit. I said, but I wondered, like, emotionally, if he was available for her, because he wasn't ever there for us. And so I hurry up. I missed the call with my sponsor. I called my mama. I was like, Ma, I gotta ask you a question. Was Pop emotionally available for Megan? I know it wasn't for us. She starts laughing, and she says, no, baby. She said, do you remember your grandfather? I said, no, ma'am. And she said, he was about the most sinister son bitch I ever met. She said he beat on them boys. He talked poorly to them. He waited till he was dying to call my daddy and his three brothers into his deathbed. And he said, you're getting this, you're getting this, you're getting this, you're getting this. Now get the fuck out of here. And don't you come back, because I'm going to die by myself. Never told my daddy he loved him. She says, did your daddy ever tell you he loved you? I said, yes, ma'am. And I hang up that phone with my mama, and I realize I've hated this man for all these years because he didn't love me like I thought I should be loved. Based on this resistance, based on this opinion and this protecting myself from the painful nature of the world, comes from such a skewed view. It's not real. And like these steps is one thing, but just like the mentorship, just taking time with somebody else, being brave enough to jump and explore what's actually real within ourselves can bring light to the darkest places, not just within us, but everybody else. Just like Family Afterwards says, our darkest past becomes our greatest asset. That's such a real thing. I had so many crazy deals, man. I love this thing so much. While I got the chance, that same worthiness thing has played such a heavy part, not in my growth as a person. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous right in the program, and like it's more discipline, and like there is like this set of action, right? So for years I became better, right? I would do these different inventories. I would mature. I would read 100 books, thought I was smarter, found out I wasn't, and then I'd come back to AA and realize again I have to take the action, right? I've done this constantly, right, over a 14-year period. But I get to about 2 years ago, and I don't come from nothing. I don't come from nothing. I got a GED in prison. But on paper, I've become successful. I got this beautiful woman. I don't know how she want nothing to do with me. I got these little kids that call me daddy. And I got this emptiness, man. And I don't know what that is, right? And I'm talking to my sponsor about it. I sponsored 20 men at one time, just like, all right, we're going to make sure I feel worthy, man. And I'm trying. I'm abusing this shit, man. And just thinking, right? It's like that page on 19, it says if we give everything to this work, we don't think its benefit will be better. It's not exactly what it says. That's the Southern version, but it says something to that degree, right? Is you can do this 24 hours a day, but it does not benefit you. I got a good story about that one too. But anyway, I'm in this spot, and I feel this emptiness, and I go outside of myself. I go to this spiritual retreat thing that was so weird, and it was awesome at the same time. And I start to get quiet enough to realize that even though I've done so much better, I'm still not good enough for God. I still have to complete the task of sponsoring 20 men, making sure they're okay, hustling at work, making sure she's okay and got everything she needs. I'm working myself half to death to try to work hard enough to be worthy. And I just can't find it. And I start into this spiral, and it's been like this forever. I just didn't know it. But I remember when I was new, there's this guy named Chris, and he's driving me down the street, And I'm new, so I'm a little hesitant. And he says, Pat, what's the worst thing you ever did? The hell, no, what you mean, the worst thing? I ain't telling you nothing like that. And he was like, bad example. I shouldn't have asked that. He said, let me ask you a question. He said, do you believe everything happens for a reason? And I was like, you ain't gonna get me with this, man. We're not doing this today, you know? And he was like, just answer the question. And I said, what do you mean, like cause and effect? And he's like, yeah. I said, I've seen a lot of cause and effect, yeah. He said, so it's a perfect world. I said, if in that reference, yeah. And he goes, what the fuck makes you think God made a mistake with you? I finally had this deeper surrender where I realized, just like I'm telling you, the fact that I do suffer is what makes me worthy of that. The fact that I do miss the ball, the fact that I don't tell the man the right thing sometimes, every fiber of my being, good or bad, is okay. That's what makes me worthy of grace. That's why it's called grace. I'm listening to this, and I ain't real big on the church thing and all that, but I listen to all kind of stuff. And Tebow, there's this tape with Tebow, and Tebow is the Christian mascot, right? If there was one, he would be the guy, right? Two-time Heisman, national championship, the whole night. He's a winner, right? Forever. But he tells his story. He said, man, I could never accept God into my heart when I was a kid. He says, man, they told me, he said, my parents were both big in the church. They say, hey, do you want to do it now? And he said, no. And they said, I don't know why. He said, I don't know if I was afraid or what. He said, I just couldn't do it. And he said, and this went on for years. And it's the Christian mascot. I'm listening to this. I'm like, no way, dude. And he tells the story, and he says, one day, he says, I'm training at the gym. This dude is a natural-born champion. He said, I'm at the gym, I'm working out, and it hits me. I go, I'm never going to be good enough. He said, I hurry up and I ran home, and he said, and I told my mom, and I said, let's do it now. He said, I want to accept God into my heart. And she's like, let me get your dad. And he said, hell no, like it's got to happen now. Daddy, tell him about it later. And he says, and I did that, and he said, the most beautiful thing happened. He said, God came into my heart. And when I hear this story, I think to myself, man, just like they talk about in these rooms, I guess I just didn't hear it for the first 12 years. Left to my own devices, I will never be good enough. My own opinion, how I formulate what's good or bad. There's always an attachment to everything good or everything bad. And there is no good, there is no bad, there just is, right? There's the natural flow of the way things are, right? And I went, man, left to my own opinion. So I went on a new journey, right? To be good enough. I still struggle with that. I'm like, bro, you've been packing on the pizza, I still do a little bit. Self-preservation is still a thing. You still love yourself and have love handles, all right? This is what I've learned. But yeah, it's... the journey always continues. My kids, I'm on the way the other day from the gym. I got my little boy in the back. He said, Daddy, God is good. I said, all the time, baby, all the time, right? And he said, Dad, I got to tell you something, though. God changed my life. I said, well, what you mean, buddy? And he said, he changed my anger to kindness. This little boy's 6 years old. And I just went, damn, man. That's me too, bro. Man, you have no idea, bro. Me too. What kept me so long from receiving even the possibility of having this love and acceptance and freedom was I wouldn't take y'all's hand. Like I said, for years, God's hand never left me. It just wasn't the one I wanted, so I'd slap it away constantly, time and time again. I've done that through recovery. I still do it now, And I was in the neighborhood. This was a while back, a couple years when I started having these, like, I don't know if I'm doing okay. I need to figure something out moments. My little boy, we outside, and he's in the neighborhood, and there's a bunch of these little kids playing, and I could see him looking over there, but he's nervous, right? Because all of us nervous, right? We want to be liked, insecure, and all that. And there's an older girl standing with us talking to my wife, and he was nervous, and she says, Louis, do you want to go over there? And he was like, I don't know, you know. And she reached out her hand, and she said, you want me to take you? And that little boy reached out and grabbed her hand. And I said, I'm doing something right. I know I'm doing something right. The willingness just to take that hand is so important. And I know it feels like the pain is greater than anybody could ever imagine, but it ain't. It is when it's yours, but it ain't when you share it. I say this, I've been so grateful. I'm gonna tell another story about a good man. The guy that sponsored me the longest was a man named Steve Alter. God rest his soul. It's taken me 6 sponsors after Steve to find somebody I could, rotate with enough. But Steve Alter, he wasn't a speaker. He joked with the guys, right? If he was speaking one night, they'd be like, how you doing, Steve? And they'd be like, just smoked a joint, feeling a little airy. He was nuts. Loved God. Everywhere he went, he used to embarrass the shit out of me. He'd have a big old thing of hug coupons. He printed these little deals out, and he would be like, here, for your daughter too. And he would hand out hug coupons everywhere we get. I'd get him a small coffee at McDonald's, and he'd put 7 Splendas in it. I love this, man. I'm talking about, bro, he emulated, he testified to what love looks like, and he wasn't a speaker, and people didn't like him because he told the truth. And I talked to a man recently, man. He's passed on about 1.5 years now. And I was talking to a guy that sponsored him too, or was sponsored by him too, named Billy. And Billy was like, Pat, he said, I tell Mary Lou all the time, he said, I'll never be the man Steve was, but I'll always try. And there's one story that just buckles him in and makes me always want to try to be like him. And there's a guy back home that is just a shit. And y'all know that guy. You're picturing the guy in your neck of the woods. It's like that. Everybody's took a turn sponsoring him. He's nuts. He doesn't listen. Then he comes back, acts crazy again. He's right back out there, right? What we do? Hey, buddy, so glad you're here. We love on him every time, right? There's this guy, and this guy is the hardest, right? I sponsored the son bitch for a little while. Just the hardest dude ever. And Steve, this whole time, this dude been coming in and out for 5 years. Steve's tried to sponsor him 6 times, right? But he still picks him up for meetings twice a week. He can't walk. He's got to have this little, he had this deal, if I wasn't there to help him in, he's got this little thing that sticks on the side of the door just so he could try to get all the way in his Cadillac, right? And he picks his kid up for meetings 2 times a week. And so one of the last times he picked this kid up, the kid's feeling his own shame. And he just starts screaming at him. Why do you even do this? Why do you pick me up? All these people, none of these people, man, believing that I could do this. Why do you still do this? That old man teared up and he said, son, I just want to be your friend and I want you to know God loves you. That is who I hope I can be. Full tolerance, man, and just absolute, real, genuine love for the next person. So that's all I got.